Hey guys, Chad here, Kayak Bass Fishing. Today I'm going to turn it over to Josh Feltenburger, right? Josh is the resident expert on center pin fishing for steelhead. Now we're not going to get into center pinning today because that's an entire series in and of itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Josh walk you through the basics of getting started steelhead fishing, and then he's going to show you how to set it up where you could fish, pretty much anything that he fishes with a spinning rod. You're just not going to have as much versatility, but you can still get the job done. So I'm going to turn it over to Josh, Michael, David, Edward. He's got like 17 middle names, Feltenburger, and let him talk to you about the basics of steelhead fishing. The way that this video came about is I actually started asking him questions because I'm interested myself. I fish for steelhead, with a fly rod, but just traditionally fishing for them with a fly rod. And when he literally just started like Niagara Falls of information, I decided that we needed to share this in the video because I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there like me that maybe don't steelhead fish or are interested in steelhead fishing, and Josh can help you out. So I'm gonna jump out of the way and let him talk to you about getting started steelhead fishing.
So here in the Great Lakes and even Huron, Superior, Michigan, the common way to steelhead fish or even salmon fish also would be underneath a float. And when I mean a float, I don't mean like your classic red and white eagle claw grandpa bobber. We actually use a special kind of float, and most float guys will have a versatile amount of them. I mean, as you can see right here, this is on a daily, steelhead outing. Any of these can come in handy. And what these different kind of floats do is they cut the water differently. This would be made for more of a slower, moderate, fast, where something like one of these slip floats would be made for deep, fast water. So we're gonna start with a float setup for any medium to smaller river or creek in the Great Lakes. So most guys, they'll use a main line. This is the line that's gonna be spooled on your reel. It can range anywhere from 6 to bigger river guys will use a 15-pound main line. So how you start with this, in most floats, they'll have surgical tubing. Now, this surgical tubing, it just comes in one standard piece. And what you have to do is you have to cut it to fit the float that you're using. So I prefer an orange piece of surgical tubing for the top and then a clear piece of surgical tubing for the bottom. So first you're gonna cut it, and on your pack of any great steelheader, you'll have a pair of forceps with scissors on them. These are very versatile in our world of fishing. So you'll just snip it to fit the size of the float that you are working with. I prefer my bottom piece a tad bit on the longer side than my top piece. What this prevents is your bottom piece of split shot when we are forming our shot pattern. It will stop it from rattling on the stem of your float. So let me grab my 10-pound piece of main line. And what you would do is you would just slide it through these pieces of surgical tubing. They're hollow. You'll slide it right through. If I can get it to go through the hole. So right there. We have them slid on. Next, you will decide what flow you're fishing, clarity, anything like that, the size of river, and that will determine how heavy of a float that you're gonna put on. So today I'm just gonna do a 6-gram float. They range anywhere from, I have a 6.2 right here, pretty handy. They can go down to, I think my smallest one in my arsenal is about 3 grams. So you would just peg this right onto the float, and that is how these stay on to your float. And super easy, guys. Sometimes might need to lick the stem a little bit to get it to go on. And that's how those go on. So what this does now is that I can just freely slide this up and down the line to change how deep I'm fishing depending on the run. So I'm gonna give myself quite a bit of room. I'll probably slide it up, and I will give myself about 2 foot of room, maybe 2.5, depending on how much shot I'm about to put on. Next, what I prefer to do is I put on my ball bearing swivel next. I keep all my terminal tackle in one of these little compartment containers, and makes it very handy and easily accessible for streamside access. So you're going to take a little ball bearing swivel, and next we are going to tie that on to the bottom of our main line. So just standard, I use a cinch knot, guys. I don't do anything fancy. I know there are a bunch of San Diego jam knots and polymers and Hoover Haba knots, but just a standard 6 or 7 turn back through the hole, and make sure you put some saliva on it, tighten it down. Boom, right there, guys. So we got a micro bearing swivel so far and our float on here. So this is where the float fishing will start to get a little bit more in depth. So this float will do 6.2 grams. Now this isn't the weight of the float. This is how much weight that this float will hold. And the next thing that most guys, they'll just throw a bunch of weight on this, and you know, if it turns up, okay, I'm fishing good. Well, I mean, you're float fishing, but you're not float fishing correctly. And this is where, you know, me catching 12 to your 2 really does play a difference. They make different size of split shot for a reason, guys. And as you see, I have all my shot marked with how much it weighs. And what you're gonna do next is you're gonna decide between all of this split shot how I'm gonna make up a shot pattern, a tapered shot pattern, the better put it, and put it onto the line to get this float to sit perfectly. So first off, 6.2, you know, that's a pretty versatile float. I'm gonna start with an SSG. Now this is the biggest of all the split shot out there, unless you get some crazy Canadian split shot that we don't even sell here in the States. I'm gonna put this underneath my float, and remember guys, like your dentist said, never bite the split shot. Pinch it on with your forceps, that's what those are there for. Boom, got that all nice and tight. That'll be the first split shot that I start. Now this split shot weighs 1.85 grams. So out of 6.2 grams, we got 1.8 covered right now. So that's my biggest, it always goes right underneath the float. My next split shot that I'm gonna use is a triple A. What that is now that is 0.75 grams. So this is gonna make up a bulk of my shotting pattern. I'll probably put on, let's say 3 to 4, depending on where we're at right now. And like I said, guys, remember, always use a, you know, set of forceps. I prefer forceps that have a smooth coating on the front so that I don't mess up my shot. And we're just gonna start pinching shot on here. And the goal of this is to get up to 6.2 grams or very close to it to make this float ride perfectly through the water. And right there's what happens a lot of the time as we're trying to make a shot pattern is you accidentally close one and you don't get it on your leader or your main line and you drop it. Which, don't feel bad guys, I probably lose more split shot than I put on my line. Like right there. So, we got 3 going on right now. 7.5 times 3, we're at 1.5 right there. So you add that in. With that big one, we're at, let's say 3.5, another 7.5. We're probably at about a little bit under 4.5 right now with our shotting pattern. We're just gonna keep on going down in shotting. They make these as small as 0.12 of a gram. These are like micro sizes made for really small, tight water fishing. I don't really use them that often, but I do carry them because you never know what situations you'll run into in the Great Lakes. We deal with super gin clear water or we'll deal with raging water. It never seems like it's right in the middle for us. So the next one I'm gonna go into, guys, is a BB split shot. That one weighs 0.37. I'm gonna probably take about 2 of these, 2, let's say 3. We're gonna go with 3. That sounds like a better number in my head than 2. And we're gonna continue to pinch shot these, pinch them right onto our line. And don't worry guys, for you guys saying, well, with you pinching them onto your line, you might be compromising your leader or anything like that. I'm gonna hit that in a minute once I get this shot pattern all set up. A good buddy of mine out of Buffalo, he showed me this, and you know, it's worked for me ever since. What I'm about to show you guys after this with removing any stressed line or anything on your main line after adding shot. So far guys, we're at, let's say 4.5, somewhere in there. We added 3 more. We're gonna round up to the nearest gram right there. So we're gonna be at about 5.5 somewhere, maybe 5.8, you know. It's not really an exact science. I just try to get it best as possible. Next one I'm gonna go down in this line is N1, and those weigh 0.31. I'm gonna add about 2 of these on here. Let me get that. And like I keep on saying, guys, I stress it that don't bite your split shot. You know, my dentist told me that I have a chipped tooth because of it. So definitely, like I said, don't bite it, even though we've been doing it since we were 10. So we got those on there. Lastly, but not least, I'm gonna go to an N4. That's probably the smallest that I really use a lot of the time. They weigh 0.2. They're super tiny. Half the time they fall off on me, but I just put them on just, you know, to make myself happy. So if I can get it to go through. Boom. So we got our shot line right there, guys. So what this shot line is, and oh, look, cut my ball bearing swivel right off by accident. So what I do now, guys, is that I will break in this split shot, and that's why I usually have the ball bearing swivel on that I accidentally cut off with my hemoceps. Give me a second to tie it back on. The next part, guys, I really feel is crucial with how I'm about to show you how I break in split shot and everything. I feel like it makes figuring out your drift a lot easier. So we got that on. We're gonna cut that right back off, but I just keep it there because it keeps your split shot from going off. I like to move my split shot right now. This is a soft shot, and what that does is it grooves it and breaks it in. So when I'm moving my pattern constantly, it's not damaging my leader. So you'll move it all up and down your line and everything. And now what I'll do is I'll push it all the way up to my float like this. Obviously, I might have nicked that line. So if you're fighting the trophy steelhead of your life, you don't want to lose a fish due to compromised line. So now what I do is I'll take it and I'll snip that swivel right back off. And this is garbage to me now. And I'll nip that piece off. So I'm left with basically everything for the most part that really didn't get slid up and down too heavily. You can move your float up a little bit more if you want, you know, if you think that you might have some more compromised main line. And like I said, you'll just cut that off and start with a fresh new piece. It's kind of a pain, but it's the difference in, you know, having a trophy fish not break your main line and losing an entire rig. Been there, done that. It hurts a little bit on the inside. You don't really want to do that. I personally say some choice words might come out when that happens. When you lose a custom float or something that retails at about, I don't know, $10, $15 a float. So like I said, just basic cinch knot. So boom, we got that. We got our shot line, everything like that, but we're not ready yet. So like I said, we'll use a main line of anywhere from 8 to 15 pounds depending on what Great Lake you're fishing. Like I said, I have 10 right here. This is pretty much the standard. Next, I will take a piece of leader material. Now this is fluorocarbon. This is very needed within our world. Steelhead might not be the smartest, but man, are they line shy. Diameter is everything, you know, look at that, I always tell people, versus looking at the poundage, because your 4 pound might be as thick as most people's 8 pounds. Now what I have right here is a Phantom. This has the diameter of 0.07. I really like it. It's fished me good anywhere from the Niagara River all the way to Michigan. I've never had a problem with it really breaking. I will take a chunk of anywhere from 18 to 24 inches depending on the run that I'm fishing really. I mean, everything depends on the water when I get there, so I try not to set up until I am on the riverside, which can be a pain, but you don't want to set up the night before and then you get to the river or the creek and you know your whole setup is now useless. So like I said, guys, I'll take a piece of fluorocarbon. I think I have about 18 inches right there, and that will go onto the bottom of this ball bearing swivel that I have. And again, just your standard basic cinch knot. Nothing too fancy, like I always tell people. If I can. Always remember, fluorocarbon is a little bit more stiffer than regular mono. Definitely make sure to wet your knots on fluorocarbon or you will heat it up when pulling that knot down and it will break easier on you. That is almost a given with that. So right there so far we got our fluorocarbon leader to our main line. So a lot of guys overlook this part that I'm about to go into, that we have shot right there on our main line to go with this. I estimate, and I always kind of shoot about 1/2 gram under, because if you use a 64th ounce jig that I have right here, these weigh 1/2 gram. So a lot of guys don't put this into their equation, that their bait weighs weight. And if you're, especially if you're fishing a piece of skein or a piece of, you know, any bait, a spawn sack, single egg, not so much, bead, not so much, but any jig or live sack or minnow or whatever you're using on underneath that, it weighs something. And guys will always think, oh, why can't I get my drift weight? Well, you're actually about 1/2 gram to maybe over 1 gram over your weight of your float. And if you bulked up and went a little bit heavier, you're now way over, and that's why your float's not riding high. So I kind of lowball when I go into this, and that's why. So like I said, I would put on this 64th ounce jig, and that, like I said, 64th ounce jig, you Google equations, it is about 1/2 gram. So you put that in as that's almost one of your, that's a little bit over a BB and a little bit in between a AAA right there. Next with this, guys, after I get this on. So you can also do a trilene knot or a cinch knot. Now the trilene knot, just standard twice through and 6 to 7 around. What that does is that will cock it. I feel like you might want to do that in clearer water, but if you can get that perfect emerald water or even some stained water, you know, your jig being a tad bit off, I don't personally feel makes a difference. Some people might argue with me, but everyone's got an opinion on how they fish. So like I said, clear water, you might want to try a trilene knot to cock your jig and make it stand up more perfect to get a natural presentation. But like what I just did right there, standard cinch knot. So we got our rig pretty much right now, guys. We got 18 to 24 inches of fluorocarbon. We got our nice split shot right there to weigh in with our fast medium 6.2 gram blood run float. Next, going up to the run, you want to figure out, are you going to hit in seams? Are you going to do more big boulder runs? And depending on that, that's how you're going to do this. Now, like I said earlier, this is a tapered split shot pattern. And what that means is I went from biggest to smallest. And how this works now is I'm going to slide my float. Let's say I want to fish, that's about 3 foot of water. So what I would do next, and I'm going to tip it upside down just for you guys to see what I'm doing, is I'm sliding that big one directly underneath my float. And you always want to start with that big one right underneath your float. My next 3, I'm going to start to gradually put them a little closer, and you're just gonna wanna keep on going. And how this works is you get farther apart the closer you get to your ball bearing swivel. So as you can see, closer, closer, a little bit farther. We're gonna get a little bit farther. We're just kinda, and you're gonna have to play with this a little bit depending on the run that you are fishing. You always have to. With this is you have to play with how close, and you can put them almost on top of each other. It doesn't matter, just as long as you kind of get where your split shot is. Now this smallest one, you're always gonna wanna pretty much have it down at the ball bearing swivel. Like I said, I'm still not kind of where I wanna be. Gotta play with it a little bit, kind of space it out and just make it work for me. And this is what's gonna determine a good float fisherman from your everyday float fisherman. And why I say that is that now you see how I got, and I'm still not, after looking at it, where I truly, there we go. That one I wanted this a little bit close. As you see, I got this crazy elaborate shot pattern working, and what this does is that the top is always faster than the bottom current. So we got more of our weight on the top, right next to the float. And what that does is that slows your float down. And then once we cut through the water with all of this shot, what happens is that the lighter shot keeps this in an arc. And what that steelhead, salmon, trout is gonna see is they're gonna see your bait before they see any of this hardware coming down. So it's gonna make it not spook as easy, it's gonna give you a better presentation, and it's gonna make it look like a natural drift. And that's what happens. A lot of guys just think lining up a bunch of split shot to level, to match this, works. And yes, it will work. I'm not debating that it won't work. But this is gonna work more effectively, I feel, than just a bunch of the same split shot on your line. So with this shotting pattern, guys, and like I said before, with how the currents are different and how this is gonna get you a more natural presentation, I feel like if you guys actually give this a try and try this shotting pattern, and there's a lot other shotting patterns. This is a standard one. When you get in the slip floats, you can get in the bulk shotting. You can get reverse tapered shotting, where if the shot is heavier at the bottom and lighter on the top because the bottom current's pulling. I mean, there's a book that I could write on shotting patterns, but this is your standard one. And if you guys give it a wholehearted try, I can almost guarantee you that you're gonna catch more steelhead in Great Lake, salmonoid, and trout species.
All right, so here's the deal. So I just stood over there and watched this entire thing, but it's probably the 12th or 15th time I've listened to this this scenario, because when folks walk in and they ask questions here at FishUSA, they get the full Feltenburger, right? They get Feltenburgered. Okay, is that right? Felten? We're going to call it Feltenburger anyway. So they get the full Feltenburger, right? And I've watched this guy, you know, do this with helping people set up lead core line, picking lures for different types of fishing, even fishing that's not the way that he does it. But let's talk about this real quick, because you maybe didn't cover this or didn't cover it enough for somebody like me, for a simple-minded redneck. When you get ready to go fishing, do you set all this up before you go, or is this something that you have to do kind of there, right? You have to do it on the spot?
So I try to do it on the spot. Like if you've been fishing the same creek for 3 days, obviously you have a feel that, okay, I'm gonna be using a 6.2, I've been using a 6.2, but when I get the brand new water, like let's say that I'm gonna drive to Michigan overnight, I leave my line 100% bare, because I can't assume that a 8 gram or a 12 gram float is gonna work there, because it might be a different water type that I'm not used to, and I might totally be running the wrong thing. So I don't want
twice as much work to re-rig than it is to rig from scratch. Now, the other thing that is going to pop into people's minds, especially folks that are not 100% familiar with this, is what is your basic? You've got 100 floats, right? You're kind of like me for bass fishing. It's overwhelming. If you were going to get started, what would be your top two ends of the spectrum, for narrowing it down for somebody that wanted to come in and just get started, meaning top two presentations and where they should fish them. As far as float fishing specifically, where do they start? Do they start with 100 bobbers, or do they start with one?
You'll get to 100 bobbers sooner or later, trust me. But if I was going to get 2 floats and only fish 2 floats and make them work for any kind of fishing for,
No, and see, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm saying is 2 floats and that you would start with, and where would you fish those? Because obviously it's going to be difficult, and that's the reason you have 100 floats. So what 2 would you get started with, and where would you fish them? In other words, what are the limitations of those 2 floats, and where could somebody expect to go get success with them steelhead fishing?
So if you were going to fish Pennsylvania tributaries, I would set you up with a 4.2 fast medium blood run float and a 6.2 fast medium blood run float. And that will cover you anything from gin clear water to a heavier flow within Pennsylvania and have success, and even some of the bordering states.
So define that. If you're saying within Pennsylvania, what type of water for the folks that don't know what that means? Exactly what would you say when you say that type of water? What are you speaking of?
So any of our local steelhead tribs at like Elk Creek, Walnut, really any of our major steelhead tributaries, west side or east side, you can use a 4.2 and a 6.2 and be very successful with it.
Okay, so basically your small to medium size creeks, right?
Yes.
Which a lot of times interchangeably, back home is called a river, right? Because you guys call a creek a lot bigger than what we would call a creek or a crick. A crick is what you get in your neck where I'm from. But anyway, so the creeks that some of you guys call creeks up here, we pretty much have transitioned to calling them rivers. Now we will call creek arms of a major lake a creek because it's named after the creek that was there. But you guys named some pretty big stuff up here creeks. So that's water, that's moving pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's deeper than a lot of what we think of as creeks back home.
4 to 6 foot, depending on spots. You can get in the 8 foot on one of our larger tributaries here out of Lake Erie in Pennsylvania. But for the most part, that, like I said, the 4.2 to the 6.2, that you can fish anything from 2 to 6 foot of water, just depending again on that whole shot pattern. Like I said, this is a pretty standard one, but you can reverse it to be able to fish that deeper water with the same float. You just gotta set up a different shot pattern to do it. And that's really what being successful in the Great Lakes is about, is being versatile on the water. And I feel like that's with any fishing, really, being versatile.
So look, man, that's really what it boils down to. And it shows you that sometimes our misconceptions about certain things change who we are. And I'll be honest with you, man, some of the stuff that you just mentioned, I'm going to actually glean and take back south. And I'm going to use some of that for crappie fishing. Now, y'all call it crappie, but where I'm from, we say the word happy. And if you say happy, that rhymes with crappie. So you don't get hoppy anytime you get excited. So anyway, I'm going to take that home and go crappie fishing because I think that some of that setup right there, especially in some slow moving rivers, some of our faster moving creeks, and some of our flooded timber, even on some of our reservoirs, this would be perfect for fishing. All right, so last question before we send this off: where can everybody find all this stuff? How much of this stuff can they find at FishUSA?
So everything that I just went over, from main lines, the leaders, to how I carry all of my terminal tackle, floats, everything that I have here. Besides,
what about your bag, your tools, all your stuff? Is all of this stuff 100% available?
Yep. The only thing that I have here that isn't is the jig that I handmade tied. But you can get all the materials here at FishUSA to tie this jig.
Okay. So. All right, last but not least, and then we're going to get out of here. Can they get that fancy, snazzy steelhead hat here as well?
Oh, yeah. They can get.
Do you have to wear a steelhead hat to be a steelhead fisherman?
It gives you confidence, I'll say. Wearable confidence.
All right, man, I appreciate it. Listen, guys, that covers the basics and a little bit more than the basics on getting started float fishing for steelhead. So this guy has actually laid down the invite. I was super slammed this year in the winter, and it got here fast and it was just kind of frozen quickly. But next year, I'm coming up here. I'm going to get on the spring run with him. This guy's going to join me for a couple videos, and we're going to figure out if he's got really what it takes to when the rubber meets the road, or when the float meets the water. And we're going to see if we can't put some of these big steelhead, in our hands and in the nets for bring you guys some videos later on this year. Then we'll get into some more advanced stuff like center pin fishing, and what would you say is probably the next evolution after this for someone that's getting into steelhead fishing?
So it would definitely be center pinning, because your center pinning is the same exact setup, but it's 10 times more control.
Okay.
Because you control how your line comes out of your reel.
Perfect. So we'll get into that more in the next series of videos about steelhead. There it is. That's your introduction to basic to kind of intermediate and even getting into the edge of some advanced steelhead fishing tactics, especially when it comes to float fishing. Anyway, so this is Josh Feltenburger. What are your actual middle names again?
Keith Edward.
Josh Keith Edward Feltenburger. That's a smattering of different nationalities and origins there. It's kind of like a little bit of everything Europe. Anyway, where can these guys find you on social media, and how can they reach out to you at FishUSA?
You guys can reach out to us on the FishUSA Pro Shop page, and
ask your questions there, and you guys will turn.
Yeah. I personally am one of the people that run that page, so if you reach out to us on any float questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions personally myself.
And then what did they, personally yourself?
Yeah, personally myself on my phone.
And then where can they find you on social media?
Facebook.
Okay, Joshua
Feltenburger.
Joshua Feltenburger
Yep.
with an F. Anyway, we'll see you guys in the next video. Y'all leave a comment below and let me know if you like this kind of expanding our horizons and getting into some other species and videos along these lines, because a lot of this stuff can make you understand the fish you pursue, and you can do some crossover even with bass fishing. So anyway, leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let us know you think, and say thanks to Josh for somebody sharing all that knowledge. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man. Later. Now, do you have to have the gauge holes to really catch steelhead? Is that part of it? Or is that just for like tying your hat down in the winter?
See, what would happen?
You have a button on your hat that you just pushed it.
Yeah, I do.
You know what I'm saying? Later.